All right, let's kick off another deep dive. Today, we're going to be kind of like unraveling a real-life immigration puzzle, you know?
Oh, okay.
It's a case that shows that even in the crazy world of U.S. visas, sometimes you find these unconventional paths to success. And specifically, we're going to be looking at the EB-2 NIW visa.
Okay.
And we're going to be talking about how someone with no patents or publications actually managed to get this visa even after they got a request for evidence from
Oh,
USCIS.
wow. That sounds interesting.
I know, right?
So the EB-2 NIW, or Employment-Based Second Preference National Interest Waiver, is kind of like, it's basically like a golden ticket to a green card, especially for those who are in like tech and engineering. And what makes it so unique, and I would say also so challenging, is that national interest waiver element.
Yeah,
You actually have to demonstrate, that your work benefits the U.S. so much that they're willing to waive the usual requirements,
right.
like, things like a job offer or labor certification.
So we're not just talking about any tech job here, right?
Sure.
This engineer must have been doing something truly exceptional to qualify. Especially, I mean, you said that he got this visa without the kind of typical things you would think of for a strong NIW profile. No published research, no patents, no citations.
Absolutely. He's an Indian national, and he was actually working in the U.S. on an H-1B visa for actually for a leading electric vehicle manufacturer. He holds a bachelor's degree in industrial engineering from India and a master's in the same field, but from a U.S. university. On paper, it might not seem like extraordinary, but his journey is anything but ordinary.
Okay. All right, you've got my attention.
Okay.
Walk me through like how this all actually unfolded.
Okay, sure. So his I-140 petition, which is basically the application for the visa, was filed on October 25th, 2024.
Mm-hmm.
And this was filed with premium processing just for expedited review. However, just 1 week later, on November 1st, 2024, he got a request for evidence, or an RFE.
Wait, hold on. A request for evidence only 1 week after filing? That's really fast. Even for premium processing, this sounds like USCIS had some like pretty immediate concerns.
Right.
What were they like specifically questioning?
The RFE directly challenged whether his work actually met the national importance standard
Oh, okay.
under the Dhanasar framework,
Okay.
which is basically like a set of legal criteria used to assess NIW petitions. So essentially, USCIS wasn't actually convinced that his work had kind of enough impact to justify waiving those standard requirements we talked about.
Okay, so he's hit with an RFE that basically attacks like the core of his application.
Right.
And he doesn't even have these traditional like strong things on his application, like patents or publications to kind of fall back on. This sounds like a really uphill battle.
It was.
Like how did his legal team even begin to address this?
Well, they took kind of a multi-pronged approach, and they started by reframing his work. So instead of just highlighting his role in, EV manufacturing, they emphasized his contribution to, like, enhancing EV manufacturing
Okay.
in the U.S. And they focus on things like reliability, safety, and overall quality improvement.
That's interesting. So it sounds like they shifted the focus from the like specific job to the kind of like broader implications of it.
Right.
But how did they connect that to the national interest requirement?
Well, they very cleverly tied his work to larger kind of national objectives.
Mm-hmm.
For example, they talked about how, like, a robust domestic EV manufacturing sector directly supports U.S. economic competitiveness, it advances clean energy goals, and it promotes advancements in high-tech manufacturing, all areas of national interest.
Okay, so they kind of like strategically positioned him as someone who is like contributing to these crucial national objectives.
Right.
Did they have any like concrete evidence though
Yeah.
to support these claims? After all, I mean, you said his name wasn't on any patents or publications.
So this is where it gets interesting. So while he wasn't directly named in, like, media coverage,
Mm-hmm.
they really meticulously documented his contributions to these high-profile projects.
Okay.
And this actually provides some really valuable third-party validation, and it showcased kind of the real-world impact of his work.
So this is clever, but it also sounds kind of risky, you know?
Yeah.
How did they prove his specific contributions to these projects
Right.
without like direct attribution? I mean, was there even enough documentation to satisfy USCIS?
Absolutely. They submitted very detailed technical project documentation along with strong supporting letters. So the initial filing included letters from a previous employer and his current manager, and that was coupled with a comprehensive cover letter from the applicant himself detailing the impact of his work.
So they kind of built this strong foundation with those initial documents.
Right.
But they still got an RFE, which means USCIS needed more convincing, you know? What did they add to their response?
Well, they didn't just, like, resubmit the same material.
Right.
They strategically strengthened their case by adding 2 brand new letters.
Oh, wow. Okay.
One was a much, much more detailed letter from his current manager, which offered very specific examples of his contributions. The other one, though, was a real game changer. It was an independent expert letter that they obtained through a professional agency.
Oh, okay. So having like an independent expert weigh in
Right.
adds like a significant layer of credibility, right?
For sure.
It's like having an unbiased third party vouching for the significance of his work.
Exactly.
What did this expert focus on?
Well, this expert highlighted the applicant's specific expertise in EV production processes and how his work directly contributed to advancing U.S. manufacturing capabilities.
So they brought in like the big guns.
Yeah.
More detailed explanations, expert validation, hard evidence. But how did all of this tie back to like the legal framework of the Dhanasar criteria?
Well, they very expertly positioned the case within that Dhanasar framework.
Okay.
Remember how the RFE questioned if his work met the, national importance standard?
Right, yeah.
Well, they argued that improvements in U.S. manufacturing processes, particularly in, a cutting-edge sector like the EV industry, are inherently of national importance.
Okay.
And this was like a key element in differentiating him from, like a generic tech worker, and proving that his contributions were significant enough to actually warrant the NIW.
It sounds like they strategically addressed every point that was raised in the RFE,
Yeah.
leaving no room for doubt, right?
Right.
This is like meticulous attention to detail.
Yes.
I'm eager to hear what happened next. Did USCIS find this new evidence compelling enough to approve his application?
So that's what we'll delve into next.
Yeah.
Remember, the RFE response was submitted on January 17th, 2025. So the clock was ticking.
So they had submitted this like meticulously crafted RFE response.
Right.
And they had expertly connected this engineer's work to the Dhanasar framework.
Right.
Highlighting its relevance to, key national interests. What happened next? Like, did USCIS agree with their arguments?
Well, on February 20th, 2025, just a little over a month after submitting that RFE response, the approval came through.
Wait, hold on. They actually got approved
Yep.
despite the RIE and the lack of, like traditional publications and stuff.
Yes.
That's amazing. So it seems like their strategy really paid off.
It did.
But like, what was it about their response that actually convinced USCIS? What are the real turning points?
Well, one really crucial thing was their, masterful use of that Dhanasar framework.
Okay.
They didn't just like vaguely connect the engineer's work to national interest. They went deeper.
Yeah.
They specifically showed how his contributions satisfied the Dhanasar criterion of, substantial intrinsic merit.
Okay, help me understand this a little. How did they actually demonstrate substantial intrinsic merit through his work on, EV manufacturing processes?
They provided evidence that his expertise in like optimizing these processes led to like real tangible improvements in the reliability, safety, and quality of EVs
Okay.
that were produced in the U.S. And this wasn't just theoretical. They backed it up
Right.
with like really detailed documentation showcasing the direct impact of his work on enhancing U.S. manufacturing capability.
So they didn't even say like, hey, this work is important. They actually showed how it was important.
Right, exactly.
Providing like concrete examples and then linking it back to that specific Dhanasar criterion. That's a nuance that I think a lot of people would probably miss.
Yeah, for sure.
And remember that independent expert letter.
Yes.
That played a crucial role too, right?
Absolutely. Having an outside expert corroborate, the significance of his contributions and then confirm that they aligned with national interests
Yeah.
added a really powerful layer of validation.
So it sounds like they covered all the bases. They reframed his work. They connected it to national priorities. They provided concrete evidence. And then they brought in like external validation, all while like skillfully navigating this complex Dhanasar framework.
Exactly.
This is like a masterclass in strategy.
It really is. This case shows that securing an EB-2 NIW is not just about like checking boxes.
Yeah.
It's about creating a compelling narrative, strategically highlighting the impact and national relevance of your work and backing it up with solid evidence.
This is a great reminder that sometimes it's not just about what you've achieved, but like how you present it.
Right.
Especially with something as complex as, immigration law. So for our listener, what's the key takeaway here? What can someone who's hoping to secure an EB-2 NIW learn from this success story?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway is this. Even without those, traditional strong credentials,
Yeah.
like a long list of publications, patents, or awards, the EB2 NIW is attainable.
Okay.
What really matters is how you frame your work.
Mm-hmm.
The strength of the evidence that you present
Mm-hmm.
and your ability to convincingly show how your contributions align with U.S. national interests.
This case really flips the script on what a lot of people would consider to be a typical NIW candidate.
Right.
It highlights how important strategic thinking is
Yeah.
and understanding the, nuances of the legal framework. And it also emphasizes the value of professional support.
Right.
Remember, this engineer's legal team actually brought in an expert to write that independent letter for the RFE response. Sometimes that extra guidance from someone who really understands the intricacies of this whole process can make a huge difference.
Absolutely. Having a seasoned guide
Yeah.
who can help you navigate this complex legal landscape, anticipate potential challenges,
Right.
and craft the most effective strategy can be so valuable.
Now, this specific case really relied on the, current national importance of the EV industry, which kind of makes me wonder how this strategy might adapt as different industries, rise and fall in national priority.
Yeah.
What happens when another industry emerges as the next big thing?
Right.
Would the same approach still be effective?
That's a great question, and it highlights a really crucial point. National interest is not static.
Right.
It's constantly evolving.
Yeah.
With the times, what's considered critical to the nation today might be different tomorrow.
So anyone pursuing the EB2 NIW needs to be aware of kind of the broader landscape
Right.
of U.S. priorities, not just the specifics of their own field.
Yeah.
It's about understanding the bigger picture and strategically positioning yourself within it.
Precisely. It requires staying informed about current trends, understanding the evolving national landscape,
Yeah.
and perhaps most importantly, being adaptable in your approach.
This deep dive has been incredibly insightful. We've seen how strategic thinking,
Yeah.
creative problem solving, and a solid understanding of the legal framework can turn a challenging situation into a victory.
Right.
And for anyone who wants to, delve deeper into the specifics of this case
Yeah.
or explore their own immigration options, I believe you mentioned some contact information.
Yes, they can. So for anyone who is maybe seeking guidance on their own immigration journey, or if they're just, interested in kind of learning more about how to navigate the, complexities of U.S. immigration, the team who actually was behind this success story can be reached at info@immissupport.com.
Okay.
Or you can call them at 888-884-2161.
That's great. This deep dive has been really fascinating.
Yeah.
It's a real-world immigration success story, and it shows that even in a system that's as complex as U.S. immigration law,
Yeah.
strategic thinking and a little creativity can really go a long way. What stands out to you as the most important lesson from this case?
I think for me, it's how much emphasis they put on the storytelling. This engineer, if you just looked at him on paper, he didn't really fit like what you would think of as a typical NIW candidate.
Right.
But by reframing his work, connecting it to national interest, and backing it up with all this strong evidence, his legal team created a story
Yeah.
that really resonated with USCIS. They highlighted the why behind his work, and that was so important.
It's a good reminder that sometimes it's not just what you do,
Right.
but it's how you communicate its value.
Exactly.
And as we talked about, understanding, the context,
Right.
the kind of shifting landscape of national priorities
Mm-hmm.
is crucial for anyone who wants to try to get an EB2 NIW.
Absolutely. National interest isn't like a fixed target. It changes.
Yeah.
And people who want to show that their work aligns with it need to be, adaptable
Yeah.
and informed, and they need to constantly be, evaluating how their work contributes to the current landscape of U.S. priorities.
This has been a really insightful deep dive. It's been so interesting to kind of unravel the strategy behind this story and to, learn valuable lessons that anyone considering the EB2 NIW path
Yeah.
can apply to their own journey.
It's been a pleasure. And remember, even in this, kind of complex world of U.S. immigration with, the right approach and maybe a little help from the experts, your American dream might be closer than you think.